Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So on 269, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and Allah grants wisdom and hikmah. So one of the strange things in Arabic language, amazing things in Arabic language is opposites. When you look at an antonym or something, so the opposite of something, you learn something, right? You learn what something is. So interesting, you would imagine when you say hikmah, right? Hikmah means wisdom. You would imagine the opposite would be safaha, stupidity, but it's not. The opposite of hikmah is dhulm. That in Arabic, the opposite of hikmah is dhulm. So you'd imagine that there's a dhulm and adala. That's what you'd imagine. There's oppression and justice, hikmah and safaha, right? Wisdom and stupidity. That's what you'd imagine. There would be. It's not actually the case. So the opposite of hikmah is dhulm, is oppression in Arabic. That's the opposite of it. And so there's so doing things in the right way, doing things in the wrong way. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever is given wisdom, and Allah grants wisdom to whoever He wills, and whoever is granted wisdom is certainly blessed with a great privilege. But none will be mindful except people of real reason. Ulul albab. We mentioned this word before. Lub in Arabic means the pulp or something, the core of something. So people who have real intellects, real sound intellects. And intellect doesn't mean you're intelligent. There's many intelligent people who are not intelligent, right? Tons of people. I'll give you an example. One of my math teachers, she was talking about super intelligent lady. So, really, really intelligent, Oxford or Cambridge, I don't know where she went, very intelligent. So she, two of my math teachers, in fact, both of them very intelligent. One definitely Oxford, Cambridge student. The other one, I think so, but also very, very bright. So one of them was talking about the beginning of the universe, right? And they said the universe is simple. The universe didn't have a beginning. Just like a sine wave, it just went in and out of existence. Why is that stupidity? Because a sine wave goes into the negative. And in math, we play with negative numbers, right? So we play with negative numbers, but we play with them. They're not real, right? So when you say, for example, the car went to a negative number, that means the car went into the ground because there is actually a ground. When you say the universe went into a negative number, that means it was less than not there. It can't be less than not there. That means it didn't exist, right? So people have a concept in their head. It makes actually no sense. They're actually very intelligent, but very stupid at the same time, but intentionally so, right? Or they say, why can't the universe go back for eternity? If Allah is eternal, then why can't the universe go back for eternity, right? That's what people say. That's called infinite regress, right? Which again is very stupid, because if you study math, you understand that infinity is not a number. It's just a game. It's just a thing that you play with. It's not an actual thing. There is no actual thing called infinity, right? So if you say, how could you get infinity? Okay, divide 1/0, that get infinity. Dividing 1/0, what does that mean? That means you got a pizza and you divided it between no people. That means not sharing, right? Dividing 1/0 is not sharing. So they don't understand the basics. They understand a lot of things, but they don't understand basics. So that they're very intelligent, but very stupid at the same time, right? I was talking to another, again, my math teacher, again from Oxford, very intelligent lady, and I was saying that, in Islam, we have something called isnad, like we check the sources. And she was like, oh, why would you do that? That means it's not holy. So basically, if it's holy, you don't have to question it. So therefore, everything that is holy, you don't question. Therefore, I can claim anything to be holy and you won't question it. So you just be blind, yeah. And she thought it was strange. She said, oh, Islam is such a young religion. You question things. And in her mind, you shouldn't question things. It's like, subhanallah, may Allah guide you, but you're extremely unintelligent. She's extremely unintelligent, right? That's a very unintelligent way of thinking, but many people are like that, right? So there's hikmah is not the same as dhakat, as intelligence. There's many people, they're not actually very intelligent at all, right? That's why you find some plumber who has an IQ of, I don't know, 150 or something. because it's not, many people are like that. Or they say very unintelligent things, and they're actually trained to be unintelligent. So, so this hikmah is a very different thing. Or they get involved in oppression. Last night I was listening to the sheikh. The sheikh is a very interesting sheikh, a lot of interesting views. And I noticed he's on this video, and he's drinking cola. Okay. And the point that the sheikh was making, that the sheikh was being introduced by his wife, and his wife is non-hijabi. And the point is, he said, I let my wife, my wife's an intelligent lady. I let her choose about hijab. And I think, oh, that's interesting, open-minded. And I'm watching the sheikh, and the sheikh is drinking with his left hand the whole time. And the sheikh is like drinking Coca-Cola, like one bottle after another. And like, subhanallah, he has a lot of dhakat, but he does not have hikmah. Right? He's very intelligent. Right? He could explain this computer, he could explain this book, all these different books. Like, he's not a fool. He's read lots of things. But in reality, he doesn't have hikmah. He doesn't have deen. There's a big difference between ilm and deen. They're not the same thing at all. Right? Many of my teachers, you never see them in the masjid. Very intelligent individuals, super intelligent. They're not in the masjid. Certainly not for Fajr. You see them on Jummah, but you won't see them at Fajr, that's for sure. Right? They spend the whole night in the library, mashallah, sleep through Fajr, inshallah. Maybe they wake up for Fajr, who knows? But they don't have ilm. Right? There was one sheikh I was going to visit, and one of my teachers said, don't visit him. I was like, why? He's a super famous sheikh, like an international sheikh. And so then I said, no, I want to visit him. He said, no, before you visit him, ask so-and-so. I was like, why? So I went and visited him. And this sheikh, he's published maybe 200 volumes of books. I don't know, like a lot of books. I mean, serious amount of books. So I go and visit him, and I go into his house, and he's quite rude. You see the way he talks to people, it's kind of rude. And he's talking to me, and he gives me some good advice, which is nice. And he's scratching his belly, and he shows me his belly button. And it's like, subhanallah, like, this much knowledge, but you don't have adab, you don't have basic things, right? And you'll see that sometimes, the nuqad in hadith science, they'll see this person as, mashallah, he's a scholar, he knows a lot of hadith, and he knows things that other people don't know. So people are keen to study with him. But they say, fulan la ya'rif kayfa yusalli. He doesn't know how to pray. Right? When you see him praying, it's like, that's not how we pray, bro. It happens that people have ilm, but they don't have hikmah. Right? They have facts, but they don't actually have this thing called deen. Right? And whoever is granted hikmah is certainly granted a great privilege, but none will be mindful apart from the people of pure reason. Whatever charities, I give you an example. There was a local sheikh, right? Two local sheikhs. One local sheikh is very famous, and he's mashallah, he helps the community a lot, and he's done a lot of good. So the other sheikh was jealous of him, and he said, Sheikh, one day I'm going to have more students than you. So these people have studied. They studied hadith, they studied fiqh, they studied everything. So that one word, don't you just watch, one day I'll have more students than you. Is this a competition? Are you trying to compete? How many people follow me and how many people follow you? Right? That's ajib, right? Don't invite people go to the other masjid. Invite them to come to this masjid. Why? Is this a competition of who comes to this masjid and who comes to that masjid? Did we go through all of this because it's about me and about you, or is it about something else? Right? Imam Shafi'i said, I never debated anybody. He had lots of debates. Right? He had lots of debates. He argued with lots of people. He argued with people he wasn't alive at the same time as. Right? He used to say, كيف أقلد من لو حججته لحاججته. He said, how could I blindly follow somebody who, if I was the same age as him, if I lived at his time, I would have an argument against him. So Imam Shafi'i had lots of debates with lots of people. But he used to say whenever he had an argument with somebody, he would say, oh, Allah put the truth on his tongue and not mine. Because it's not about me and about you, it's about the truth. I want you to be right, not me. Right? And I believe there was a debate, same thing, I think between Yahya ibn Ma'in and Imam Ahmad on a particular issue. And because of their insaf, because it's not about me and about you, they they both took the opinion of the opposite person. So I had an opinion A, he has opinion B, and at the end we switched opinions. Because you convinced me of your argument, I convinced you of your, etc. So it's not, there's a difference between ilm and hikmah. Like, what's the point of all this? What is the point of all this? So there's a big difference. You know, one of my teachers as well, he said, when you study fiqh, you realize everybody is stupid and everybody's sinful. Everybody's sinful. Everyone's doing the haram all the time and everyone doesn't know anything. And then when you study usul al-fiqh, you realize you're stupid. Because there's so many different ways you can look at the deen. You can look at it from this point of view, you can look at it, and you're thinking it's like this, right? It's only like this. And then you realize, actually, there's different ways you can do things, right? And he says, and then when you study the maqasid al-sharia, you realize the wisdom. What are we trying to achieve here? What are we trying to achieve in the deen, right? So this hikmah is a big difference, right? You see, you know, that many people don't have it. And it's much more important to have hikmah than ilm. Like, what are you trying to do? What is the point of tajweed? What is the point of fiqh? What is the point of aqidah? What is the point of ilm al-hadith? What is the point of tafsir? What is the point of the masjid? What is the point of hijab? What is the point of any of these things, right? There was once a niqabi. My friend, he went to IRS. You might have heard of IRS, not IRS, RIS, Reviving the Islamic Spirit. You've heard of that? It's a big conference every year, Reviving the Islamic Spirit. It's a huge conference. RIS, not IRS. Inshallah, we all go to IRS. Say, guys, come on, help me out, bro. But the RIS. And so he said it was just really weird. He said there's this niqabi running around holding hands with some guy with her arms exposed. So like, why are you running around? Why are you holding hand with this guy? And why are you wearing niqab? Like, it's just odd. Like, what is the point of the niqab? Like, what is the point? What are you trying to do? Right? It's very funny. So, you know, subhanAllah. So there's people understanding what is the point of something. What are you trying to achieve? Hikmah. And then again, what's the opposite of hikmah? Dhulm. Putting things in the wrong place. So many people, they do good things in the wrong way. Good things in the wrong way. So for example, I owe Mansoor $20,000. And he's like, bro, 2 years ago, you haven't paid. 3 years. And then on Laylatul Qadr, you know, I'm going to get the ajr by doing sadaqah. So why is that dhulm? Because you put the good in the wrong place, right? You put the good in the wrong place. Woman goes to work, she puts on makeup, she comes home, takes it off, right? So you put the good thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes beauty, but put it in the wrong place, right? Same thing, the guy goes, he's on Friday, he comes home, no shower, dressing really bad on Saturday and Sunday. When he goes to work on Sunday morning, has a nice shower, looks nice, but you know, so you're putting the good thing in the wrong place, right? It's like as soon as suhoor comes in, you say Bismillah, Allahumma laka sumtu wa ala rizqika aftat, Allah Akbar. As soon as Fajr comes in, it's like, right? And then somebody says, what are you doing? He says, well, you know, it's good to break your fast as soon as possible. Like, you fasted at night and you ate during the day, so yes, right? It's like you put the good thing in the wrong place, right? May Allah forgive us all. So there's so many times we do this, we put the good thing in the wrong place, right? May Allah forgive us. We mentioned before as well, anger, right? What is the point of anger or stubbornness? The point of anger and stubbornness is for us to use against ourselves, right? I'm sick and tired of doing the wrong thing. So you shout at yourself and you're angry with yourself. And then you keep wanting to do the wrong thing. You're like, nope, not going to let you do it. Not going to let you do it. That's called stubborn. What do we use it? We use it against other people. We're stubborn against other people, easygoing with ourselves. It should be the other way around. Allah gave us this thing as a tool called anger. And it's to be used against ourselves. I'm angry that I did something haram. I'm angry that I missed out on a sunnah. I'm angry that I'm wasting my life. As opposed to you angry with everybody else, forgiving with yourself. It should be the other way around. Angry with yourself, forgiving with other people. Right, so this is all examples of hikmah or the lack of hikmah. And then it says, whatever charities you give or vows you make are surely known to Allah, and the wrongdoers will have no helpers. To give charity publicly is good, but to give to the poor privately is better for you and will absolve you of your sins. So the default is all non-obligatory things you should do privately. So the default is So all sunnah prayers you should do at home. You shouldn't do in the masjid. The default all charity you shouldn't do in front of people. You do it privately. The default of anything. I'll give you an example. So one of my teachers, he was in Damascus, and he lost all his money. Somebody stole all his money. So he comes up to a sheikh and says, "Sheikh, these guys stole all my money. I don't have any money." And the sheikh kind of didn't say anything. He was like, "Sheikh, they stole all my money. I don't have any money. Like, I'm not even from here. I don't have anything." The sheikh didn't really say much. And then the other students left, and the sheikh gave him like tons of money. But he, in front of other people, he pretended as if didn't really care. So he didn't want anybody to know. So this is the default is privacy, right? There's a ghayrat, you have a privacy with something, right? So privacy with your acts of worship. Charity, etc. It should be done privately, unless, for example, you're trying to set an example. For example, with your kids, Bismillah, you said it aloud so the kids can hear. Oh, daddy sits like this when he eats. Whatever, like things like that. You want to show people, or you're showing other people, etc. But we have to always understand that there's a continual call by the shaitan to do riyah, to show off, right? And so when most of your worship is public and it's not private, then it's a problem, right? So Sufyan al-Thawri, when he died, he was asked, he was seen in a dream, and somebody asked him, they said, what happened to you, Sufyan al-Thawri? One of the great zahids, one of the great ulama, great muhaddithin, etc. He said, all of those words that I said have gone. Every single thing I did in public, the only thing that's left is a few rak'ahs I did at night. Those few things that were genuinely private. So my qiyam al-layl that I did publicly, yeah, that was just whatever. Forget about it. I took people on a Hajj tour and I gave them a long talk. Yeah, whatever. Right. So the reality is what happens at home, not what happens in public. Because most of what happens in public is just showbiz. That's the reality of it. So that's why we have to work on personal worship at home. So Taraweeh is a great thing because it makes us pray rak'ahs that we wouldn't otherwise pray. But we need to change that to say, no, I would pray that otherwise. So the ulama, they disagree. Should you pray Taraweeh at home or should you pray Taraweeh in the masjid? Right? So like the Malikis, they'll say that if you're a hafiz or somebody who's memorized a lot of Quran, you should pray it at home, right? If you're going to do a khatam, etc., you should do it at home, right? There's two different opinions from Imam Shafi on the issue, but the same kind of attitude is the default. Everything should be done at home and privately. So charity should be done privately, right? To give charity publicly is good, but to give it to the poor privately is better for you and will absolve you of your sins. Right? And Allah is all aware of what you do. You are not responsible for people's guidance or profit. It is Allah who guides whomever He wills. Whatever you believe and spend in charity, it is for your own good, as long as you're seeking the pleasure of Allah. Right? And so there's basically three levels of ikhlas. When you say about you're doing it for the sake of Allah, there's basically three levels you can talk about. Level number one, you gave for the sake of Allah in order for Allah to help you in the dunya. So for example, your son is sick, you have debts, you're like, yeah, Allah, I have debts, I'm just going to give $10, say, Allah, please help me get my debts. Whatever it is, you're doing something for the sake of the dunya. So it's ikhlas because you're showing off to Allah. Say, oh Allah, see what I'm doing and help me in the dunya. Right? That's ikhlas, that's sincere. And interesting, the word sincere is a Latin word, like most English words, and it means sin without sere, wax. So they used to, without wax, they used to make idols, a statue of the emperor, right? Emperor Farid Dingle. So I'm going to ask my people to make a statue of me. So they'd make a wax one, and they say, do you like it? They say, yes, I like it. Okay, now copy it in stone. So there's the wax version, and then the real version, right? So sincere means the real version, the version without wax, right? So it's like a real deal, right? Just like the word in Arabic is ikhlas, is from the word khulasa, which is like the extract of something, right? You get something, you get the extract of it, like the extract of a perfume, the extract of a flower, like the perfect, the real thing, right? That's called the extract, right? So that's called the khulasa. So you gave that person the khulasa, you gave that person the real thing. That's called ikhlas in Arabic. So we have level number one, you did it for the dunya. Level number two, you did it for the akhirah. Oh Allah, I've done haram things, I'm giving sadaqah, please save me from the hellfire. Right? Oh Allah, please give me Jannah. Right? So you're not thinking about the dunya, you're thinking about the akhirah. And then you have level number three, which is, oh Allah, I'm not thinking about the dunya or the akhirah. right? I saw the Mus'haf and it fell on the floor. And I just couldn't bear that Allah's word should be on the floor, so I picked it up. Okay, were you thinking about, oh, Allah help me in the dunya? No. Okay, were you helping, oh, Allah help me in the akhirah? No. Just Allah, right? So if this person were to give a choice, say you have two options. You can either go to paradise, but Allah wouldn't be happy with you, or you can go to hell and Allah will be happy with you. Which would you choose? They say, I'll go to hell. Because for them, it's a personal relationship with Allah, right? So all of it is personal, but it's not the same, right? It's not the same. So somebody just for Allah himself is a different level, right? So these are different levels of ikhlas. And then we have the opposite of ikhlas, which is showing off. And again, this has different levels. There's showing off to people actively. So for example, I'm not going to go to Fajr. And then it's like, no, but Mansour's going to be here. And if I don't go to Fajr, then he'll think that I'm not religious. So I have to make sure that he thinks I'm religious. So now I'm going to go to Fajr, right? Everybody else said Bismillah when they ate. I feel awkward and I feel they're going to think that I'm irreligious. I'm going to say Bismillah. Everyone else is wearing a hat, so I'm going to wear a hat. Everyone else is doing this, so I'm going to do this, right? Everyone else is eating a small amount. MashaAllah, they're all following the third thing. They're doing a third for the third of food, third of water, third for air, and I'm not doing it, right? And so that's called pure riya. You're just doing things for the sake of people. And the problem is most of us don't even know we're doing that because it's natural. Why is it natural? Because that's how we were raised, right? So for example, like the other day, oh, my son prayed Fajr. So I told his mum, I praised him, and then I told his mum when he wakes up, praise him because he needs that as a kid. Good job, good job, good job. So you grow up, the way we're educated is showing off to our parents or showing off to our teachers. That's what we do, right? And so it's normal and natural to show off. But when you reach puberty, that's not acceptable anymore. So now you're always mixed, right? Doing what people think is good and doing what Allah thinks is good. It's not the same. You were told, obey your parents. But in the beginning, you can't tell the difference between obeying your parents and being intimidated by your parents. There's a difference. So were you intimidated by your parents? Were you trying to show off to your parents? Were you trying to obey your parents for the sake of Allah? They're three different things. As a kid, you can't tell the difference. The kid, you can't tell the difference, right? A grade 5 kid who's very obedient. She listens to the work. She does it. She focuses, gets good grades. Good student. Fast forward 10 years. Now she's a mura'i. Now she's showing off because she's a teacher's pet. So a teacher's pet in grade 5 or grade 2 is one thing. Teacher's pet in grade 6 is something else. Because now you're just showing off. It's all riyah the whole day. She's showing off to the teacher the whole day. Teacher, can I do extra homework? Right? And people don't like it. It's like teacher's pet. We don't like it because we see that there's no ikhlas. Right? And she gets good grades and and everybody praises her. So she thinks everything is good until she meets Allah. And it's like, no. You have a relationship with Allah. You have to have a relationship with your creator. Right? So we have level number 1, which is you did things, you initiated things. Like, why did you go to the masjid? Why did you give that charity? Why did you do this? Right? And you will find that this happens usually between your peers, people of the same kind of background, and the opposite sex. This is usually when it happens. So for example, I'm with another Shafi scholar. And he's like, oh yeah, it mentioned it in this book. And I'm like, yes, and in this book, and this book, and this book. So I'm trying to show him that I know stuff. Right? Or he's, for example, a businessman. He's like, yeah, I'm thinking about buying this car. He's like, yeah, I sold mine actually. So he's talking about his money, I talk about my money. So we're on the same level. Whatever he has, whatever I have. But as opposed to a scholar of fiqh versus with a businessman, we don't really show off to each other. Right? Two women, for example, yeah, my first pregnancy was super easy. I never threw up ever, and didn't even feel anything. And she's like, yeah, I gave birth to triplets, and I did it all by myself. And she's like, yeah, we're thinking about having another baby. She said, yeah, I'm thinking about having another 5 babies. And so women compete in women things. Women of the same age, men of the same age, men of the same background, youths of the same thing. Usually, you show off to people who are of the same kind of level. Usually, there's other reasons you might show off as well, right? And then the opposite sex. That's a normal and natural thing to do because again, you're created to procreate. So you are built to get the attention of the opposite sex and to impress the opposite sex. So whenever you could do it, you'll do it. That's what you're built to do. So there's a lady, for example, there's a man who's pulled off to the side and he needs his tire changed. You'll think about it. Should I do it? Should I not? See a woman, you'll think 3 times about it, because that's how you're built, right? That's how you're built to do things, right? And so then you're thinking, mashallah, I'm a good person. I help this sister out, right? And even your haya will be riyah. That you're shy, right? You're lowering your gaze the whole time. You never lower your gaze. You're lowering your gaze as a sister, and you back off, da, 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 da. It's all showing off, like from beginning to end. And you're thinking you're a good person, right? Women will do the same thing. Oh, brother, do you need she cleans her house because a man's coming to the house, right? Or women do that to women. So she's cleaning her house because other women are coming. So she wants to show off, right? Or even because men are coming. So she's programmed to do that. That's normal. It's also haram. It's normal, but it's also haram, right? So these are very real things, right? You're very real things. People will show off to people of their same kind of background. So what you need to do is say somebody's of your same background is always show them your worst side. Like, they're like, yeah, mashallah, I paid off my debts. I've actually got my down payment on my house, and my son's at college and he's getting great grades. You're like, yeah, my son's a dropout. Just to fight that side, because we know you're going to try and show things about yourself. People are going to do that. They're going to speak about their things or do things, doing charity privately, right? There's a story of a sheikh who did this even to people who are younger than him. So the sheikh, who was a very righteous person, okay, very righteous person. He was known to be righteous, but he knew that he had something inside him. Like everybody has something inside them. So there were these students that said, Sheikh, we want you to come to our country and be our sheikh. And he said, okay, how much are you going to pay me? He said, don't worry, Sheikh, we'll help you out. We'll make sure you have a stable salary and you can come. He said, yeah, but how much? And they're like, Sheikh, well, it's okay. He said, no, how much? Give me numbers. So they're like, I don't know. They start thinking about numbers. He's like, that's not really enough. And they keep going up and up and up and up and up. And they're like, and they left the sheikh thinking, this guy is like, he's just trying to get tons of money. This guy's messed up. He said, that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted you to think that I'm a money person. That's it. So he knew that he could see in his heart that there's this taste. I want to be seen as impressive. And so I will fight that to the opposite. Right? So fighting these things, fighting these things is a very important thing, because by default you show off. Right? By default, if you're talented, you show off. That's what everybody does. So you always have to fight it and be like, yeah, actually,
What about farayas? If you go to
the fard is different. So the fard, you don't say, oh, actually, I don't pray. Exactly. So the fard, you say, for example, somebody doesn't pay zakat. Mansoor doesn't pay zakat. So you say, Alhamdulillah, I paid my zakat this year. Look him in the eyes and walk off. Right? Alhamdulillah, I pray Fajr on time. Right? Now, it can still be showing off, though. It can still be showing off. So you have to be careful. But by default, there's more benefit than harm. So you're supposed to come to the masjid and pray the fard in the masjid. You're supposed to give zakat openly. Oh, this guy, you see, for example, this brother, he's super rich. He never pays zakat. He pays zakat, though. So he does it publicly. He says, oh, Imam Baqara, I have zakat to pay. Who do I give it to? So everyone's like, oh, yeah, remember that? We remember him last year. He's talking about zakat. This is my wife, right? So someone's like, oh, yeah, for the sake of what's it called? For the sake of making people think bad about me, I pretend that my wife is my girlfriend, and everyone thinks I'm committing haram. Like, no, you don't do that, because there's lots of harm in that. The Prophet ﷺ himself did that. The Prophet ﷺ, he was with who? Not Aisha. No, she was with not Hafsa. What's her name? With Safiya. He's walking at night with Safiya, and the Sahaba looked at him, and then he started walking off. And he said, "This is Safiya, by the way." They're like, "Subhanallah." I said, "No, this is my wife, Safiya." So clarifying certain things is important.
He was etikaf, I think, in Ramadan.
Yeah. So there's certain things in terms of the fard, as opposed to the sunnah, the opposite. Right? And so you have to be careful. So you have to look at the things that are important. For some people, the dunya is very important for them. They're like, oh, I just bought a new car. Oh, actually, I have an old car. Inshallah, one day I'll be as good a businessman as you. Because people show off about business, they show off about their kids, they do these things. And they even lie. They're like, my daughter made this food. Like, my son just got accepted to college. No, he didn't. You paid for him to go to college. I mean, you just found any college to go. He didn't get accepted. Like, anybody would get accepted for that, right? So you have to work on yourself, find out what you show off about. Some people, this is important, some things not important. right? And a lot of these things are veils you won't see, right? And then you'll see it happens here, it doesn't happen there. But if you don't work on yourself and if you're not careful, you will be doing riyah all the time, and nobody will have it, and you have no clue. And you find Allah on Judgment Day, and you're like zero, not zero, minus zero. So who are the first three people go to hell? The Imam, the person in Gaza right now, and the person who's spending on Gaza right now. So you spend every month you're spending $1 million helping people in Gaza and helping people in Afghanistan. It's all burying yourself into hell. How? You lit Taraweeh. You gave a class every Fajr after Fajr. You digging yourself into hell. You died for the sake of Allah. You were there. There was a big fire. You went in and you pulled the child out. You threw the child out the window and you died. And you go to hell. How? Because they'll say on Judgment Day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, I gave you this and this and this. What did you do with it? Say, Ya Allah, you gave me money and I spent it for your sake. Say, you lied. And all the angels say, you lied. You only did it to be known as a generous person. You only did it to be known as the Sheikh. You only did it to be known as the Mujahid, Ghazi. Right? Well, Allah, it's all showbiz. And he'll be thrown to hellfire. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah passed out 2 or 3 times narrating the hadith. He passed out 2 or 3 times. Because he's a sheikh? Imam Abu Hurairah, half of the hadiths you have from Abu Hurairah. So he's a big sheikh. He passed out 2 or 3 times narrating the hadith. Because that's how scary it is. Right? So the Prophet said, Abu Hurairah, these are the first people for whom the fires of hell will be lit. Right? So ikhlas is not a joke. Ikhlas is not a joke. Right? So what do they say? Is make your amal like salt, and make your ikhlas and your adab like the flour. You're making bread. The main thing you need is the flour, not the salt. So most people, it's salt. I did this. I went on Umrah with my kids. Here's a picture of my kids, and here's a picture. Why are you sharing this with your family? Because it makes me feel good. What do you mean makes you feel good? It's called ostentation. It's called showing off. Right? And most people, they don't even tell the difference. They can't even tell the difference. Many religious people, they makes them feel good. Right? I did this. And what it means feel good is if you felt you had an ego boost. That's what it means, an ego boost. So you have level number 1, you just did that to show off. You only did this to show off. You only did this. You were only generous, right? You were serving your guests and you felt that they felt that you were cheap. So you said, Bismillah, have some more. Or you said in a loud voice to your wife, oh, is there more? Bring out the other food when you know there is no other food. And you know they're going to say it's okay, right? So a lot of this is Eastern culture. We have a lot of that, right? In the Western culture, we have other sins. In the Eastern culture, because sum'ah, your reputation is very important. Because people showing off is a major thing. And so this person will live their life in sin the whole time and they look like a righteous person. Right? And there's all sins against them. They're going to the prayer is sin against them. They're leading the prayer, every single thing. Where they say, Ameen, has a beautiful thing in it. It's all sin. They're just being cursed the whole time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to worship Him. That's what Tawheed means. Worship Allah. Don't worship culture. Don't worship other religious people. Don't worship kuffar. Don't worship money. Don't worship Allah. That's ikhlas. That the only thing you did, you said, I don't care. So again, what's the paradigm? Is you're a dead man and you came back. I don't care what they think. I really don't care. This person, that person, I don't even notice it. Right? So imagine, for example, your son just died. How are you going to think about money? How are you going to think about the opposite sex? How are you going to think about power? How are you going to think about whether people think you're religious or not religious? You're just blown to pieces. I remember was it now, a year and a half now? When my dad died, I remember it's like a side of my life. It was like a wall. If you have 6 walls, like a side of your wall of your life just dropped off. Like a whole dimension of your life. So imagine with your kids. May Allah protect us. Like holding your dead children. So that's the believer. Is that you've lost everything. And you've come back and you're like, what can I do? I don't care. I'm not here to impress or this or that, right? So leading the prayer is a huge danger. You make a mistake and you're like, oh, I don't want to make a mistake. Why? Is it because of the Quran and the prayer, or is it because you don't want to seem like you don't know something? And then you correct yourself. And then you do this. You went a surah less. You did that because you can't remember the next ayah. Riya. You did an ayah more so that you tell people you know the ayah. Riya. So you're playing with fire the whole time. Right? One of my friends, he asked the Sheikh, I want to start teaching. He says, start teaching when you stop thinking about teaching for a year. Start teaching when you've stopped thinking about teaching for a year. Right? Many people, it's showbiz, like no joke. Right? I knew somebody, subhanAllah, like there was a Sheikh, he's very impressive. He has a very good way of speaking. And he's, right? Inshallah, the Sheikh himself is sincere, inshallah. There was one guy, he was trying to copy the way he spoke because he wanted to be as impressive as him. Even the way he gesticulation, everything. Like Michael Jackson's cool, I want to be like him. So they've taken the showbiz of the Sheikh and they're copying the showbiz of the Sheikh. They want to be the same kind of person. Right? There was one Sheikh in Saudi, he said he could do the 10 qira'at, he could recite Taraweeh in 10 different qira'at in 10 different maqams. So he had amazing voice and amazing tajweed, amazing everything. And his dad was like, showbiz. It's just showbiz, right? Maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, I got this YouTube ad. Do you want to get more followers? It was like some kind of priest thing, right? Because like being a priest is a business. They make a lot of money, right? And it's showbiz. Like, do you want to have more followers? Like, why would I want to have more followers? Why would you want to have more? One of the Salaf, he would sit, he said, when there was more than 3 people in front of him, he would leave. So I don't want more than 3 students in front of me. I'm not going to deal with that. If they want to benefit, that's good, but more than 3, I'm not going to do that. Right? So showbiz is a very real thing, right? Very real thing. And Sufyan al-Thawri, he said, I don't know of anybody who has more hasad and more hatred between each other than the ulama, because their life is showbiz. Mufti so-and-so, Qari Saab, Imam Saab, right? Just like Muhandis Saab and Tabib Saab and all these, right? Dr. Saab, all the same thing, right? Every single person has this thing, has the dunya that is eating away, a disease, but they have to get rid of that disease. They were only and ever told to do one thing. Pray for the sake of Allah, worship for the sake of Allah, do things for the sake of Allah, small things that you can do. But what do? Compete, right? In the dunya. May Allah protect us. Right? So number 1 is you did things purely to show off. Number 2, retrospective riyah. So you were praying by yourself. You gave charity by yourself. And then other people found out. They're like, at the end of, at the end of Ramadan, they'll say, we'd like to thank Mansoor, mashallah, for donating $2 million, and you're very happy that people found out. You didn't initiate it for the sake of Allah, but you're very, very happy that people found out, right? And so I don't like to give this example, but it's a very good example. So forgive the example. It's not very nice. Imagine somebody who videos their intimacy with their wife. This person has no ghayrat. They have no decency. Okay? So that's bad, right? Imagine somebody who did something privately and then found out that somebody videoed them and then were happy that it was videoed. Can you see the difference? That's the same person. You were praying, you were crying in sujood privately. And it was something special between you and Allah. Just like intimacy is something special, but it's only special when it's private. It's only special when it's private. So you were crying to Allah, or you helped people out in ways that nobody knew. You helped your wife out in ways that nobody knows. You helped your spouse, your husband out in ways that nobody knows. You helped out orphans. Maybe you have 10 orphanages in the world, right? We don't know what you're doing. And you did it privately for the sake of Allah. And then later on, people found out and you're like, yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad they found out because now I feel big in their eyes. This is the same as a person who somebody's watching them while they're doing things like there's nothing special about you. There's nothing special about you, and there's nothing special about you and your wife or anything. There's no sacredness. There's nothing private, nothing, it's just gross. So that's also the same thing as people find out, oh, you did this and you're happy and you're impressed. So that's called retrospective showing off. You didn't initiate it to show off, but you became happy afterwards, that means there's still filth in your heart. You don't, you don't worship Allah. You worship somebody else, right? And many of us are like that. Many people, like a Christian, worships an idea of Allah. It's not really Allah. Or a Zionist, they worship an idea of Allah. It's not really Allah, right? Or an atheist, whatever they do, right? And then there's another level which is showing off to yourself, right? So again, let's make it an analogy. This person, for example, that looks in the mirror and they used to be really fit, right? In their teens, they used to be really fit. They could run 2 miles, not a problem. They could do this, and then they don't like the way that they are anymore. They don't have the same image. They had a self-image, and so now they want to get fit, not to show off to other people, but for themselves. It's the part of their own pride, right? It's part of their own pride of who I am. I don't really care about other people, but I care about who I am. So this person now, for example, this person always prays Fajr on time, and then they miss Fajr on time. And it hurts them, not because they missed out on connecting with Allah, but because it's taken away their self-image. So they have a little idol of themselves in their life, and they're worshiping this idol. Part of this idol is the fact that they're good, they can make good money. Part of this idol is that they are very intelligent. Part of this idol is that they're very funny. Part of this idol is that everybody likes them. Part of this idol is that I'm religious. So they've labeled themselves as religious, and it hurts their ego when they don't see that. So it actually has nothing to do with anybody else apart from themselves. But their niyyah is not Allah. And again, where's the acid test? The acid test is when you cut away the religious. They just cussed in Ramadan. And they're like, then they're panicking. Why are they panicking? You zoom in, and they're panicking not because they've done something to offend Allah, but because they've taken away their own self-image, and it hurts them. So that's another level. So every single person is like an onion, right? If you don't peel off the first level, this person's lost. So the kafir is like that. He's like, I'm totally fine, because they haven't taken off that first level. The believer takes off the first level, and then the second level, third level, fourth, and then you find problems on different levels. And so every single one of us, we have to be working on this onion. They realize there's harshness in what I do. There's pride in what I do. There's this, realize that. And so then until they get real tawheed, like I'm a genuine slave of Allah, they might not do much. They pray a few sunnahs here, right? Many people, for example, they'll pray less. The only reason why they were at Taraweeh is to show off. Or the only reason they knew they were supposed to sleep, and they knew they have an exam tomorrow, and they knew that Allah wants them to do something else, but they didn't do it because they're showing off, or because somebody praised them for praying Taraweeh, and they like that praise. They want to keep that because it's part of their self-image. I always do that. In the beginning of Ramadan, they're like, yeah, I always pray Taraweeh. So now why don't people pray all the whole full 20 rakats every single night? I always do it. So they made a proud statement about who they are and who should people be, and they keep to it, right? Or they're strict, right? They're like, no, I'm Shafi. I don't do any of that alcohol stuff on perfume, and it's just an ego trip. So a lot of life is just an ego trip, right? Like, why do you want to become the president? To help mankind? No. To get the money? I already have money. Ego trip, right? Oh, polygamy. Why did you want to have a second wife? 2, mashallah. The guy's like, yes. Bro, you're fasting. Okay. So ego trip. I'll show her. Ego trip. Yeah, I want to show people that I'm a man. It's all ego trip. So it's like, mashallah, you're doing the sunnah in a haram way. So how much barakah is in there? Nothing. So many times ego trip. I have to memorize the Quran because my brother did. It's called an ego trip. Right? That's what happened to Imam Ghazali. Imam Ghazali is like, I realized in the middle of my life that everything's an ego trip. I'm super intelligent. I'm the big scholar. It's just an ego trip. What's the point? I'm not doing anything. This is not deen. This is called an ego trip. And you'll see it. You'll see it in other people, but you won't see it in yourself. Right? Like you can see harshness in other people, and for you, it seems justice. Right? You see the other person is showing off, but you can't see that it's showing off in yourself. But you are the same as that person. You function in the same way. Right? And so, often what happens when this person becomes more religious, they actually do less. They'll give less charity. They'll pray less. they're less strict because half of the strictness was for Allah and half of it was an ego trip, right? That's how it is. Half of it was an ego trip. May Allah protect us. So what are we doing in Ramadan is finding about our ego. We're not finding about how much we can recite and how much we can pray, because most of the Sahaba, by the way, did not know as many hadiths that we've heard, by the way. They didn't have internet. They didn't have Umar Sulaiman. They didn't have YouTube. They didn't have as much access as we have. They probably didn't know as much Quran as half of us, but they had amal and ikhlas. They did it for the sake of Allah. You see the kind of things they did. It's very difficult things, and they did it for the sake of Allah. Right? May Allah protect us. So give charity publicly if you're free from if you're free from sin, free from showing off, and watch yourself. Be very, very careful. And sometimes you can't even see things. You don't even see things. So you need to, not sometimes, by default, you can't see things. So we're not expected to be perfect, but we are supposed to be expected to be working on ourselves. And you are not responsible for people's guidance, O Prophet. So here's another thing. It's embarrassing that your son's irreligious. What does it mean? It's embarrassing. Like, I really want my son to be guided because it's embarrassing that my nephews are all guided and my nieces are all guided, but my son is off. That's called showing off. That you find it awkward that your son is irreligious. So do you want him to be guided for the sake of Allah? Do you want him guided because you love him? Or do you want him to be guided because it's an embarrassment? Right? So like your son comes in like tattoos and, on Eid, he's wearing tattoos and it hurts you. Why? Because it's an embarrassment. That's called showing off. That's all showing off. That means when you sent him to Madra, when you sent him to Maktab, it was all showing off. It's all about yourself and aggrandizement, right? How big I am because I have this and I have this and I have this and I have this and I have this, right? As opposed to, so again, a lot of people's like, just, I want to sujood, but your head on the floor. I can't guide people. Yeah, I know I was in one country and I was visiting this religious man, and it was on Eid, and not all of his family is religious. So he said, this is this country. And he looked at me and said, like, this is this country. Like, this is, I'm not putting on airs. Like, I'm somebody who, like, everybody in everyone in my family has memorized the Quran and the Bible and the, what's called, I don't know, what's the Buddhist book? No, the Buddhist one.
Buddhist one.
I don't know. They memorize that too, And he's like, yeah, it's like
Gita is for Hindus.
Yeah, something like that. But he's memorized the meter as well, It's like, no, I'm not trying to put on airs. I'm not that amazing. No one's amazing. We're just trying our best, right? As opposed to, we're all religious to show off. She wears niqab just because it would be awkward otherwise, right? He makes sure his wife wears niqab so there's not an embarrassment. That's not deen. That's not deen, right? Just like going to church on the Sunday. That's what happens. Like, go to church. Oh, because my son's a churchgoer. My son goes to church, so you better go to church. So it'd be an embarrassment to the family, and that's why people stay kafir. It would be an embarrassment if you became Muslim, right? You're white, you're well heeled, you have property. What's all this hijab, Allahu Akbar stuff, like So this is what people do, right? So that's why when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breaks people, then they can become, gives them a difficulty and gives them sincerity. So we have to be very careful. Fiqh is easy. All you need to do is study a book of fiqh and then ask somebody if you don't know. And you're not going to know everything, and he's not going to know everything, and it's okay. Aqidah is easy. Ihsan, the science of ihsan, is not easy. The science of the heart is not easy. And the good thing in fiqh is things are overlooked. Oh, you got involved in this kind of haram contract. Yeah, but you were forced. Oh, you got it. You missed Arafah. You went on Hajj and the whole ummah, the Saudi got it wrong. You missed Arafah. It's okay. So it's not a problem. Everybody, if they got the day wrong, it's okay. We're just, whatever day that everybody's there, it's okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will overlook things of the outward. He won't overlook things with the inward. Right? So cynicism, hatred, messed up heart, messed up intentions, these things are not overlooked. Everything else is easy in the deen apart from this. This is where it's strict. This is where it's like, no joke. right? And this is where the hard work is. Every single one of us is a work in progress, and we have to be a work in progress. But if you see the work has stopped, this person is not trying to change day in, day out with their heart, then they have a serious problem. May Allah protect us all. And whatever you donate will be paid back to you in full, and you will not be wronged. Right? And this happens in the dunya and in the akhirah. You donate, you always get things back. Right? So a good way to make money is to donate. Right? Generous people usually get more money. That's just how it works. Right? And so it says charity, and then it says charity is for the needy who are too engaged in the cause of Allah to move about the land for work. I.e., charity is for people engaged in voluntary jihad. So these people are in jihad, and they don't have people. There's no government supporting them, etc. Those unfamiliar with the situation will think them not in need of charity because they do not beg. So begging and complaining, these are two un-Islamic traits. It's not haram, right? If you're in financial need, it is not haram to beg, right? If you are in difficulty, like I have a pain, and someone sort of says, how are you doing? Oh, I have a lot of pain, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. It's not haram, but it's not part of the deen. So Waki' ibn Jarrah, one of the Salaf, he said, somebody who complains to somebody else is like somebody who has a dirty hand and wipes it on the other. Meaning Mansoor can't help you. So you can inform the doctor, but you don't complain to the doctor. So complaining is I'm trying to get sympathy from you. So trying to get sympathy from other people is not part of like Tawheed, because one person is in control of your life. So you might practically inform the doctor this, or Mansoor, please don't lean on me right now because I have a pain in my shoulder. That's not called complaining, right? But as opposed to, oh, this is what's wrong with me, and this is what's wrong with me, and that's what's wrong with me, and I try and get sympathy from you, and trying to get sympathy from you. This person is always trying to get sympathy. This is not doesn't behoove a Muslim person. It's not deen, right? And similarly, begging is like, oh, help me, help me, help me. That's not good, right? So rather, what should we do is we should have a culture of hard work. We mentioned yesterday the hadith that the Sayyidina Dawood, he worked from the sweat of his brow. So you try and find a job that pays enough for you for 40 hours. Okay, I can't do that. 50 hours, I can't do that. 60 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours, 90 hours. I can't do more than 90 hours. Okay. Right? But that's the attitude of a believer, is you work very hard. So those unfamiliar with the situation would think they are not in need. Why? Because of the way they carry themselves. Right. So again, go to Afghanistan and say, hey kid, are you hungry? Would you like some food? What would he say? He would say, Jazakum khair. He's not going to say, yeah. Because that's not how they're trained. They're trained to have self-respect. Right. Somebody without such self-respect would be, yeah, give me. Right. So you can recognize them by their appearance. They have a certain demeanor. They do not beg people persistently. Whatever you give in charity is certainly well known to Allah. Those who spend their wealth in charity day and night, secretly and openly, their reward is with their Lord, and there will be no fearing for them, nor will they be sad. Those who consume interest will stand on Judgment Day like those driven to madness by Satan's touch. That is because they say trade is no different to interest. It's all the same, right? If I can rent out a car, I can rent out money. So here is a car that's worth $10,000. I give you the car that's worth $10,000, and you give me back the car in 1 month plus whatever, $500 or whatever, how much it costs, $1,000 to rent the car. So I've turned $10,000 into $10,000 or into $11,000. What's wrong with that? Right? So they say trade is the same thing. It's just exchanging, and you're just renting out money, right? You rented out the use of cash. I had cash. I gave you the use of cash, and just rent it out. What's wrong with that, right? There's no problem with it. And what's the difference? Allah has made riba haram, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made trading halal, right? So again, classic scenario. You can do a murabaha contract on a house, or you could do a riba contract on a house. So I go to Bank Mansour and I say, Bank Mansour, I'm trying to buy this house, and it's going to cost $500,000. Give me $500,000. He says, okay. And he gives it to me. I go and buy the house on interest, and then I'm paying back Mansour money over the next 30 years, and I end up paying him maybe 1.2 million, maybe something like that, right? Over the time, I'm going to pay him 2 and a bit times the amount, but over 30 years, he benefits because he gets the money. He gets more money. I benefit because I bought a house and didn't have to pay rent. The landlord benefited because he could sell a house. Everyone's happy. But this is haram. You can't do that. So what do? You do murabaha. Murabaha contract is I go to Mansour and I say, Mansour, please, do you have cash to buy this house? And he says, yes. Go and buy the house from that guy and then sell it to me in installments for $1.2 million over the next 30 years. So one is called trade and the other is called interest. It's basically the same. So why would an Islamic bank charge more? Because it's harder, because now Mansour carries liability. He's now liable for damages. Because in the first scenario with riba, I didn't buy the house from him. I bought the house from him. In the second scenario, you bought the house from him. The house became under your legal responsibility. Then you sold the house to me. So now anything goes wrong with the house, I'm going to come to you, not to him. Right? So in riba, the bank is less involved and it's much better for the bank. The bank doesn't want to get involved with too many complex things. In trade, you get involved. Right? I have a website and I sell stuff. So you want to buy trainers, or what do you call them? It's American, not English. Tennis shoes. You want to buy tennis shoes. In England, called trainers. Okay, some tennis shoes. You click on my website. I buy them from him and I sell them to you you see that all the time. Amazon. You buy something on eBay. It was from Amazon. The guy bought it from Amazon and sold it to you. Right. So that's just called trade. Right. You made money like that. But in the process, you assumed responsibilities. Sometimes those responsibilities come back at you. Right. So I clicked on your website and it was for $40. You couldn't even find them for $40. You find them for $60. So now you sent them to me for $60. You lost $20. Right? If there's a problem with the house, I'm going to come back to you. There's a problem with the house, you're going to fix it. The problem with the car, if you finance the car, same thing. Right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made one thing halal and the other thing haram. There's a difference. Right? So somebody who says riba is just like murabaha, they're the same thing, is like somebody who says, listen, I'm going to go to a country. Okay, we understand that, for example, prostitution is bad because it abuses women. Women find themselves, it's usually drug addicts, it's all these things. Okay, I'm going to a country that has legalized it and organized it. What's wrong with that? Here's a country that has legalized it. Here's a woman, she's registered. She goes to the doctor, so there's no issue about diseases. She's checked if she's pregnant every other whatever week. If she was, the clients, if it's this person, there's DNA tests. What's wrong? If there was a child, she would be supported. What's wrong? It's not much difference to marriage. It's not that different. Say, well, Allah's made this halal and made that haram. What's the difference between breaking your fast 1 second before Maghrib? 1 second before Maghrib, haram. 1 second after Maghrib, sunnah. Why? Right. Why can't I just pray that way? Why do I have to pray that way? Ahallallahu al-bay'a wa haram al-riba. Allah has made one thing halal and the other thing haram. And the ulama, they also disagree do we know by default, everything has a reason in the Sharia, but we don't always know why, right? So for example, Imam Malik was asked this question. He said, if we can use a dog for trade, for hunting, and a dog bites the rabbit, why do we have to lick it or wash the bowl when it licks? He says, it's just like that. Like, we don't know why, just do it. Right? The other scholars say because the dog's saliva is najis, so you do have to wash the rabbit, or because the dog is najis, therefore you can't buy the dog. Right? They have a system. So everybody agrees that there's always a hikmah, but we don't always know what it is. So here the ulama, they say, do we know the reason why interest is forbidden? Because somebody's going to come along and give a whole sociological or socialist argument. The reason why riba is bad is because it makes the wealthy wealthier. Okay, doesn't murabaha make the wealthy wealthier? I'm a landlord, right? And I have property and I rent it out. So I just make more money and you can't buy any houses. So does Islam forbid the wealthy to become wealthier? No. There were Sahaba who were very wealthy and Sahaba who were very poor. So the ulama, they disagree. Do we even know why? We know there's a reason. right? But do we know exactly the hikmah behind it? What's the difference between renting out money and renting out a house, right? And so again, you can do that. You're like, I want to rent out money. You can't. That's called interest. Okay, buy a car, rent it out. Buy a house, sell it at profit. Flip houses, right? That's how you turn money into money, right? And perhaps one of the reasons is because when you sell money for money, you're not there's no circulation in the economy, as opposed to, so I had $10,000. I went to the Bank of America, said, I want to put this in the saving account and I want to leave it there and make more money. They said, sure. As opposed to, I bought a car for $10,000 and said, hey, Mansour, you drive this car. So now he has a job. Now he has a job. Now he can get married. Now he can have kids. Now he can buy bread. Now, all these things, right? And so Mufti Taqi Uthmani made this point. He said, he was talking about forex exchange. So people exchanging, dollars for yen, yen for euro, euro for etc. He said it's halal with conditions. If you fulfill the conditions, it's halal. But Allah doesn't want you to turn money into money, right? It's not haram, but Allah doesn't want you to turn money into money. He doesn't want you to play with numbers. So this morning you had 10 million pounds. You bought yen, sold it for dollars, sold it for pounds, and now you have $11 million pounds. So you turn money into money. Allah doesn't want you to do that. Allah wants you to get money and do things. Start a factory, start a school, build a hospital, buy cars, rent them out, build property. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to do things, not just play with numbers. That's not the point. The point is not you play with numbers, right? So, so Allahu Alam. But, there's the issue. And we mentioned again before, there's basically three arguments that people have, particularly when it comes to buying a house with riba in the West, right? They have basically three arguments for why they say it's halal. Number one, because money isn't money. They say dollars are made up. So there's no such thing as riba in a dollar because a dollar is made up. It's not worth anything. The Prophet was talking about gold and silver. He's talking about gold and silver. So you can't make jewelry out of a dollar. It doesn't have any wealth. If you took it to another country, let's imagine if there was a nuclear war. Okay, total, like America is not talking to China, China's not talking to America. If you turn up in China with gold, they don't care where it's from. It's worth something. You bring dollars into China, they're, what's that? We don't recognize it. So dollars do not have innate value. So argument number one is there's not even money. This is like monopoly money. So it's not a problem. That would also mean that it's haram to trade in it though. So if you take that opinion, you say it's the money is not money, it's haram, then you cannot trade in it. When you take an Uber, you can't pay somebody in dollars because that's not money. When you buy food, you can't do that because it's not money. You took something, you gave nothing. So that's haram. So if you say there's no riba in it, that's fine, but go and live on Mars or go and live on an island somewhere, right? Have your own gold and silver standard on a little place somewhere in the, I don't know where, because if you say that, you say there's no zakat because you don't have any money. There's no interest because you don't have any money. And you can't even buy and trade with this either. So go and have your own farm somewhere in third world country, just stay there and that's it. Argument number two is we're in a war zone. We mentioned this before. We're in a war zone and it's called Dar al-Harb. We're in a war zone and things are allowed in a war zone that aren't allowed other places, right? Where's the problem? So again, the analogy was you're in Gaza right now. The Israeli soldier comes in and you say, here, I'll give you $10. You've got to give me back 11. So can I do that with an Israeli soldier? So yeah, you can do that. So they say the same thing here. We're in a war zone right here. This is a non-Muslim country. It's a war zone. And so in a war zone, you can take interest from the non-Muslims. Okay, what about giving interest? You can't give interest. So when you buy a house with a conventional mortgage, you are paying interest. When you have a credit card and you're paying interest, you can't do that. It's haram. Argument number three, right? Argument number three, which was agreed upon by certain international scholars and then rejected, is that in the West, there's two problems. Number one, there are no Islamic banks in the West. And number two, there is a huge financial need for every Muslim family to own their own house. Renting is cripplingly difficult. Both those premises are not accurate. It is not true that there's no Islamic finance. There is at least 2 or 3 Islamic finance banks here in the Bay Area in California, right? They exist. Yes, it is harder to be okayed by them. It is true. You have to have a better income. You have to do it. It is difficult, and they will charge you more, but they do exist. So don't say they don't exist. And number two, it is cripplingly difficult, right? Cripplingly difficult to not have what's it called? To rent a house. Is it? So there is a huge difference. If you rent for the next 30 years, $1 million has gone down the drain. You live in California, that's what you're talking about. You spent $1 million over the next 30 years approximately, or probably more with inflation, and that's gone down the drain. As opposed to if you buy your house, maybe 1.5 million, and you will have paid it off and you own your house. But is that crippling or is that inconvenient? There's a difference, right? So the judgment of some scholars is this is crippling and it would make life impossible for people. The majority of 99% of scholars, and again, this opinion, they discussed this, they had a huge conference in the Middle East, and then they discussed it, they agreed, they said, yes, you can, and they said, no, you can't, because they said that's not true. It's not crippling not to have a house. You can rent. You can rent. You can rent for 2,000, you rent for 3,000 and just live like that. It's difficult, but it's not crippling. Crippling is like this. Your son, like my son, for example, he had his elbow what's it called? Dislocated over on the playground over there. What do? Call 911, right? And go and get medical. What if I didn't have medical insurance? That's crippling. That's crippling. Is like, my son is in extreme pain. And they say, you don't have medical insurance. Okay, how can I get medical insurance? You got to pay this. Oh, but that's haram. What am I supposed to do in America, where where you can't just say, hey guys, give me. It's not $500. It's $20,000. $10,000 for the ambulance come, and then you walk in. Everything's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So when I lived in Jordan, not a problem. You take them to the ER, $20, $30, $50, not a problem. That's money that people can make. Whereas $20,000 because you're for a dislocated thing, or $5,000 on the oxygen for 3 days, that's crippling. Like, you come out and you are broken. You come out with a bill of $200,000, right? Because of whatever a month and something like that is called crippling. So there's a big difference between difficult and crippling, right? Praying on time is difficult. Praying Jummah is difficult. Isn't praying Jummah on Friday in the West difficult? It's very difficult. You're at college, you're at work. It's hard. There's things that are happening. The system is 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And suddenly I have this time where I have to be at a mosque. Maybe the mosque isn't close. Maybe I have a meeting. It's hard, but it's not crippling. Crippling will be, I have no job. The only job is I have to work. I have to be at the counter at that time. That is the option. They say, take it or leave it. And I have no other job. That's called crippling. So again, a lot of the arguments, that's why a majority of scholars, there's like, no, you cannot do that. Money is money. You're not in a war zone. And if you're in a war zone, you could take money. You could lend money to non-Muslims. So if somebody says, yeah, we have a Muslim bank where we lend out, right? Like the Jews, they say you can take interest from the non-Jews, right? That's the mentality. In a war zone, you can take interest, but not give interest, right? There's two different things. And then number three is what? Is what's it called? It would be too difficult not to own your house, so therefore you can get involved in the haram. And that's very different to, let's say, insurance. Insurance is a very different kind of thing. You are forced to do it on these particular scenarios. You have a shop, you're not allowed to have a commercial shop without interest. You can't have house, lots of things are going to be very difficult, right? And then the last thing we just talk about it is having a credit card. So majority of scholars say having a credit card itself is haram. You can't do it because you've signed a contract saying I'm willing to pay interest, right? You can't do it. Minority of scholars, but a significant number of scholars, namely many modern Hanafis, and many other scholars as well, many modern scholars, they say having a credit card for the strength of the credit card without paying interest is halal. So you have a credit card and you rented a car and they charge you twice the amount. Click, what's it called? Click, claim, what is it? When you challenge, you challenge the payment, and immediately they can take that money off. And then the credit card company, because it's Visa, because it's Maestro, it's very powerful. They can deal with, that company very easily. With your debit card, they charge you twice, and suddenly you don't have any money. And now you have to take them to court in China, and it's going to cost you the flight plus this, plus this. It's not going to happen, right? So there's many things in the modern Western world, maybe in Pakistan, maybe Afghanistan, you don't need a credit card, and they won't even give you one. But a functioning person, let's say you have a business, you have this, there's many things where you kind of need a credit card on the proviso that you don't pay interest though. So the issue is you signed an agreement, I am willing to do the haram, but you don't actually do it. So it's kind of haram, but there's a pressing need for people to have it in these countries where we live, right? And so that's very different to somebody just racking up a credit card thing, right? Which is obviously totally haram, right? So that's a subtle thing where there's a need. In Afghanistan, there's no need. In Jordan, there's no need. In many places, there's no need. But you live in a country where you can't do that. You want to rent a car, they're like, you need to have this. There's certain things where the credit card will do things the debit card will not do, or etc. And it's very tricky. And you're not actually incurring into paying interest. You're just putting the money there and paying it off, right? Many scholars have said that's halal, right? But many scholars don't say it's not halal, right? Would you sign a contract that says, if you don't pay in time, I'll take your child? No one's going to do that. No one's going to sign the piece of paper, even if it's theoretically possible, right? You can enter this country, but if you don't leave this country within 30 days, we're going to take your child away. You wouldn't enter, you wouldn't do it. Like, I'm just not going to do it. So same thing with interest. Be like, and then many people again, it's a very dangerous thing to do. So it should be only a situation when you are forced. Let's say you have to open a company, and I don't know what it is. There's certain things where they will only do things with a credit card, because again, it has power, because you're dealing with a company as opposed to me, right? And so we have to be very careful with these things. And again, there's always a fatwa. Google it. You'll always find a fatwa that says everything's halal, right? Everything's halal. Right? If you come and read my books at school, at home, you're going to see all these books. Oh, wow, this is halal and this is halal. Everything's halal, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made certain things crystal clear, and certain things clear, certain things less clear. And Allah is testing our iman and our ikhlas, right? So may Allah forgive us all. Subhanallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka.
Check with about the fidya of fasting. If you miss 10